I've been a doctor going on 10 years now, and I've come across cases which would stun the average person. It's not often I'm stumped on a certain case. But once it had to happen. I was working the night shift, and that's when most activity happens. Busy nights like this kind of makes you wish you had chosen a different profession. But when you got a big caring heart like mine, you can't help it. As I was making my rounds on the East Wing, a few nurses brought in a man who looked unconscious and covered in blood. No pulse and pupils dilated. I could have called it right then and there, but for whatever reason, I knew he wasn't completely deceased. I checked all the vitals and pupillary response, and nothing, but the thing was, this man had begun to twitch, was cold to the touch, and skin was pale as plain paper. You would swear he was dead, but it seemed a little premature to declare him. When I opened his mouth, I got the shock of my life. Immediately I backed up and had my nurses take him to a private room immediately. I began to hyperventilate at the sight I had just seen, and shook my head as I leaned on the wall for a few seconds, trying to collect my thoughts in order. After calming down, I went to private room, and I instructed the nurses to strap him down, and they just looked at me like I was crazy, since this man, half-dead man, seemed like he could barely move, and they questioned why. As they did so, I asked one of the nurses to leave, leaving me with the senior nurse who I had been working with for some time now. I went and slid the door and locked it as my nurse just watched. I looked at her, and I could tell she could see the fear in my face, and she asks, "What's wrong with you? Haven't seen you this shaken up since your first day." I looked at her and smirked nervously, and I walked up to the man, opening his mouth and shone my hand light inside. I looked at her and replied, "What do you see here, HMM? What does that look like to you?" She leans in, looking inside the man's mouth, unimpressed for a few seconds, and her eyes widen suddenly. "The heck, are those real?" she whispers as I begin to venture his gum lines, inspecting all the teeth he in, and I pulled back and say on the chair behind me. She started to hyperventilate herself. "Those can't be real. Like maybe cosmetic surgery or something, right?" I shake my head, disagreeing with her statement. "The gum line isn't torn and doesn't look to be any tampering now. If I'm not mistaken, humans don't have teeth like that. And they definitely don't have four of them on the canine teeth. What I think we have here is something we aren't supposed to have in our hospital." She looks at me with wide eyes, with her hands on her heart, holding a cross. "You don't think I mean? Is that possible?" I shake my head. "I don't know, honestly. I think what we have here is the impossible. I don't even want to say it, but I think we have a vampire in the hospital." We sat in silence for a few minutes, wondering what to do next, as this man tossed slightly, still strapped down and not sure about the lore of vampires having super strength, or if I watched many horror movies. Stumped at what to do next, I felt it was my duty to protect the people in the ER, and I decided to take this man or thing to a safer location of the hospital. Paranoia hit me like a ton of bricks as I stood over this being in front of me. I instructed the nurse to open the door as I began to wheel him out of the room, before putting a blanket over his entire body and hiding his face, which seemed pretty much human. I managed to wheel him past a few doors, and without warning, I was approached by these men in suits and sunglasses, looking like government officials. They stopped the gurney and held their hands out, stopping me from going any further. They took the man down the hallway as one official looked me up and down, and without a word, walked away just like nothing had happened. I managed to follow them to the back entrance, and seen them loading the man into the back of a black van, followed by several other black cars, which I thought was strange. They drove off as quickly as they came, and just like that, they were gone. Me and my nurse never mentioned the incident to anyone, cause of the fear of these black suits coming back to silence but it never happened. I'm not sure what was going on, but whatever it was, I was just glad it's happening far away from my hospital. I am a believer in many things, but this one's a new one for me. And there are times when I can't sleep knowing there is a whole new world out there, which I can't comprehend. Maybe I don't want to know what's really going on for the sake of what's left of my innocence, but they're out there and I know that now. Question is, are we really safe?